right after the leather thong thing. So we're recording, but we don't have anybody tuning in yet. Always takes a little bit of time. But hey, Michael McCullough, aka Mac, from Willard Library, broadcasting live from Burley Corners, Michigan. Did you know that, Sean?
I did not. I try not to stalk you anymore after you got that TPO. It took all the fun right out of it. I don't know, just me.
So here we are. We still don't have a single viewer yet, but I'm confident that we're going to get one.
It's Tuesday and it's nice outside, and
that's true. It's beautiful. Everybody might be doing what my neighbor is doing over here and cutting the grass.
Because that's always awesome, right? When you're doing filming, that's the best part right there.
So I still don't see a eye here. So that's the wonderful thing about broadcasting live like this is people get to see your mistakes and I see a viewer. Awesome. If it's an audience of one, it's the people that are supposed to be there. They're meant to be there.
Absolutely.
So once again, Mac McCullough here. Oh, here we go. Leah Ortiz says hi.
Oh, hey. I know her.
And she loves the background, Sean.
But did you see what's in the foreground? Did you see what's in the foreground here? I'm just saying. Thank you. Very happy about that.
So welcome to our broadcast tonight. And my guest tonight is Sean Washington. Sean, who works for Substance Abuse Council as a program coordinator. But I'm not qualified to do your whole bio. But Sean is a storyteller extraordinaire, a jack of all trades, and you can see him in his little podcast studio there in his home. So, Sean, hey, how you doing, man?
I am happy to no longer be quarantined. I think that's the best part is that I'm still in the basement working and doing all this, but I have the choice. I can always go outside, and I really am excited about that. So, yeah, I'm a little jealous that you're out there and I'm in the basement, still in the dungeon.
This is my trademark. I go outside, and then people don't notice all my mistakes. They're looking at my fire or my garden or whatever I'm doing. So,
if I went outside, people would be looking at my yard, and that is my mistake. I'm an avid indoorsman, and my yard is nowhere near where it should be.
So, Sean, we're going to get to talk a little bit about the stuff that we're reading. Actually, Sean, when I asked him to do this, he came up with this meditations, which are the reflections of Marcus Aurelius. Am I saying that correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Roman emperor and 100 AD, something like that?
Yeah, way back.
So, but we'll get into that. What I want people to know is a little bit about you and what you do. I got to know Sean really well. I've known him for years, but I got to know him really well when a few of us got together and started the Mosaic Storytelling Corps, and did a few concerts, and Sean kept up with that. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, like you said, I'm kind of got that jack of all trades feel on me. I have been in Battle Creek my entire life, except for when I left for the military 4 years. I came back and I wanted to be, I tell everybody, I came back and I wanted to be a chiropractor, and I went to KCC and took biology and anatomy, and didn't want to be a chiropractor anymore because those classes ripped my heart out. So I wanted to be a teacher, and then that didn't, teachers do what they do because they love doing it. And I have a lot of expensive hobbies, so that didn't work out. I wanted to be a cop, and I have this whole thing with not getting shot, so that didn't work out. And finally, I kind of settled in on the human services, and I've been fortunate enough to just do a variety of things within the human services. Everything from, I started out as a lunch lady, hairnet and everything, and I moved from that all the way up to basically assistant principal. From there, I was able to use the knowledge I picked up to travel the country, doing trainings for people that were in my similar job role. After that, I was a planetarium director at Kingman Museum. I did some work with juvenile diversion. I finally settled in at the Substance Abuse Council because under threat of someone kicking me out of the house, I was told I had to get an actual, normal, real job. And so I didn't find one, but the Substance Abuse Council was close enough. So
Well,
now
right.
everyone thinks that I'm like, just say no, oh, don't do drugs, don't do drugs. And that's not what we do. Actually, it's all
Yeah.
about, make the best choice that works for you and just be honest to yourself. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's okay. We're all different. So, live your best life and make great choices and enjoy this town. There's a lot of great things to do in Battle Creek and a lot of great places to see. And I think, our organization really encourages people to live and love and have fun, but do it in a way that doesn't give you consequences you aren't anticipating.
I heard a definition of the opposite of addiction a few weeks ago. Opposite of addiction is love.
And
and that's self-acceptance, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the part that people get mixed up so often, is that stigma. They look at people that are in recovery as though they're broken, but they've got it wrong. The people that are in recovery they're fixing the things that they look at and went, this doesn't work for me, so I have to change this. Yeah. So when they were broken, they're accepting and saying, oh, well, you're funny and all this stuff. But when they start working on themselves and actually doing the hard work, then they push away the most, and it's backwards. So, I think especially in these days with COVID and all this isolation, we really have to do a great job of checking in on our strong friends, because there's a lot of people that that made it through quarantine by making some choices, we'll say, to keep themselves up. And now that they're all going back to work, they're finding that they're paying a price for it that they didn't anticipate, and it's getting bad.
Yeah. So your work is actually, I was going to ask you what your work has been like during the quarantine, but it sounds like you're kind of moving into the phase where it gets really, really hard.
Well, even during the quarantine, it was a lot of, how do we take this traditional message and give it and put it in this virtual space, and fight the reality that during the quarantine, no one wanted to hear a prevention message. Like, the whole just say no thing. Nobody wanted to hear that, like, at all. So people were just trying to do whatever they could do to cope. So now we started preparing not only for whatever is to come in the fall, but also what are we going to do? What are we going to do to keep things moving forward and keep people aware that these choices, that they're not alone, that they don't have to walk this path alone. If they've gotten themselves in some trouble, there's community partners out there that are ready to help. So it's a lot of connecting these different organizations, connecting people to agencies, and then pushing out there that message that it's not the person that drinks a case a night that's normal. It's the people that love them enough to get them help and be there with them and guide them and make sure that they're following through on the promises that they're making for themselves. That's how you show love.
Right. Yeah, and this is actually a really good segue to the subject of this one of the things I love about doing this is that people get to meet people who are doing work in the community, and I just love hearing what people read, what inspires them, what they carry with them. But you could have knocked me over with a feather when you told me what your suggestion was, and I never saw you as a stoic, right? But then I have to confess that I probably have bought into some of the popular culture interpretation of what stoicism is. So tell us a little bit about the book and the philosophy that underpins it and what that means to you in your life and your work.
Absolutely. So a lot of what we see now and today, it has its roots in stoicism. We don't even recognize it. Like, a lot of times you hear like CBT, like some types of therapy and counseling. They all actually have their root in philosophy, and some of them directly back to stoicism. But oftentimes people don't recognize it because they think, when they think of a stoic, they think of someone that just is that perfect Eeyore that just just moves through the day, deal. And that's not it. With stoicism, I got into it because I was looking for I was trying to study some philosophy, but I was looking for something functional. A lot of times, philosophy is, I felt like it was going to be so far out of my realm or out of my grasp. I couldn't get behind it or understand it. And Stoicism hit me, and every piece of it just started clicking. And I was like, hey, that makes sense. And wow, like this guy from 2,000 years ago is saying stuff that still is applicable today. How is that working out?
Yeah.
And the more I studied and the more I started looking into it, the more I was like, I get it. And it's the most important part of it is, I think, is one of those things that we've all heard 1,000 times before, but when the Stoics put it together, it just all kind of clicked. The whole idea of that the only thing that you can truly control or that impacts you is you. You are like everything like to the external is outside your realm of control. And so if if things are happening and you aren't sure what you're supposed to do, you just ask some questions. Is this in my ability to control? If it is, then it's my responsibility to do what I need to do. If it's not, then I just leave it alone. I don't have to be concerned. I don't have to deal with that, and I don't have to mind read or be. I The place where I saw it was when I was starting to help my daughter drive, and the guy in front of her would hit his brakes too fast, or he would do something and she would be like, I can't believe he did this, and she'd be all angry and upset. And then I realized, I'm like, but you don't know what that guy's going on. Like that guy, he may have hit his brakes because he saw something in the road, or he may have hit his brakes because there was something that happened that we couldn't see. And he did what he needed to save himself. And in theory, he saved us. We don't know. And maybe he hit his brakes just because he's a jerk and is having a bad day. Either way, we can't control that and we can't change it. So why care about it?
But what we can control is how we internalize it or how we don't internalize it. That's the clear message. And as I was reading some of the selections and thinking about it, a lot of other great advice came to me. And one of them, we have a yoga class. Well, we've had a yoga class now for the last couple of months. Megan Lucci as his instructor, and she often asks people to think about what's coming up for them. And she goes, don't judge it, just notice. And I think that's kind of what at least to me, that's kind of what this is about, is that when we're judging, we're resisting reality that's in front of us, right, and thinking it should be different, as opposed to just noticing it and letting it go. And the other thing I think about is radical acceptance. Just life is what it is, man. Life is what it is.
One of the meditations in the morning that I try hard to do every morning, the first thing I think of is I'm going to die. Like if I woke up this morning, that's a gift, but one day I will not wake up. I'm going to die. And recognizing that, some people are like, oh, why would you think about death that way? But the reality is, how can you not? Like, if you don't think about death, then there is no urgency in what you do. If you think you have all the time in the world, then you can put off those things. It gets real easy to I'll do that tomorrow. Yeah. But when you realize tomorrow is not a guarantee and today could be your last day, suddenly it starts having some more value. It has more weight. The other exercise I do is I go through the day and I think of all the things that are going to go wrong, all the things that could happen I'm going to go downstairs and there's going to be no coffee. And then the dog is going to, chewed up the trash. It's going to be all over the floor. I'm going to get in my car and there's going to be no gas in it because no one in my family, except for me, knows how to operate, a gas hose. And like all these things are going to go wrong. I go through it all in my head throughout the entire day. And then when I go downstairs and the dog was actually a good dog and like he's waiting there for me, he didn't do anything stupid, then I'm like, hey, that's good. And if I go down there and he did it, then I'm like, well, I knew that was going to happen anyway. And I don't have to be surprised or shocked or really care about it. I knew it was going to happen. I'm not surprised. And so when good things happen, then I get to celebrate that because I know there was a possibility for bad things to happen. Yeah. And when bad things happen, then I get to let them go because bad things are going to happen and I can't control that. Yeah. And so that's stoicism for me. That's the that's the peace that it offers me, and that I don't have to feel like it's my responsibility to save the world. I just have to do the best that I can and do the right thing. And if I do those things, then the world will be a better place.
Yeah. So this is the book that we have at the library, the edition that we have. Just putting it up there for folks. Do you have a couple of things that you wanted to share with our audience?
So in the beginning of my journey, I started reading the Amazon free version, which is the one that has all the those and thous and thus, and that was melting my brain, and I was not doing well with that. So I found a much easier version, which I've read a metric ton, and then now I found a version that's in between that is more true to the text, but is still somewhat readable. So I'm kind of slogging my way through that. But I do have a couple that just set out to me in the first reading that I had done, that notes that I made. And one of them was this: if someone tried to take control of your body and make you a slave, you would fight for freedom. Yet how easily you hand over your mind to anyone who insults you. When you dwell on their words and let them dominate your thoughts, you make them your master. And that was just kind of made me go, oh, like I I meet all these people and they have full stockpiles of weapons that they're willing to, like, defend their home, and they're defending everything. But then something pops up on Facebook and their day is ruined. And, they're willing to defend their property, but they let their mind go for free.
Yeah. Well, and because we're so cultured to this whole judgment thing, we're so worried about what people think, and we can just let it kind of derail us. I was actually thinking about this today. I went out for a run in the heat because I'm nuts, but but I was thinking about one of the best pieces of advice I got from one of the worst bosses I ever had, and this was 10, 12 years ago. I don't know what it was, but he said, what people think of me is none of my business. And that just really stuck with me.
Yeah. And it
don't
works.
worry about it. Yeah.
And if they still have a bad opinion of you after you've done everything you've done, doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
You still wake up nice.
I did one, and I showed this to you before we started broadcasting, but also at Willard Library, we have the Daily Stoic. And this book is really interesting, and it has a lot of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and other Stoic thinkers, and it's organized by day, so it's a daily meditation. And this is very similar to what you just read, Sean. While it's true that someone, and this is Marcus Aurelius, while it's true that someone can impede our actions, they can't impede our intentions and our attitudes, which have the power of being conditional and adaptable. For the mind adapts and converts any obstacle to its action into a means of achieving it. That which is an impediment to action is turned into advance action. The obstacle on the path becomes the way. And so, the idea is that, just accept what comes your way and then turn that into something that can work for you. And it sounds a little Pollyannish, I think, maybe. But it's just such a more constructive attitude, because, again, you can be derailed by little things that just fall in your path every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that just happened to be for June 30th, which is today.
Nice. And what I love about that is that everyone says, the destination isn't it, it's the journey. But what makes the journey so interesting and what makes it so powerful is all of those obstacles and all the things we learn as we move past those obstacles. And when we look back and we go, that was tearing me up 6 months ago, but today I'm different. I play indoor soccer because I'm insane, and I chose to play keeper not because I had ever played soccer before or because it was the easiest position, but because if we win the game, which we rarely do, but if we win the game and the score is 8-1, and I'm like, everyone's like, yeah, we won. When they leave, they're thinking about the 8 goals that we made. When I leave, I'm thinking about the one that got through.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, I have to practice over and over again of this happened, this was a moment, it's gone, I need to let it go and get back in the game. And I can't let whatever's happening out there get so far into here that it takes me out, because if it does, then I'm gonna let everything through. And so even playing sports, I use those same stoic intents to make sure that I let things go. And if life happens, because it's going to, if it doesn't go my way, that's okay. That's the way it was meant to be. It was always meant to be that way. There was no other way for it to be. And it's my responsibility to do something with it.
Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is just developing a mindset of gratitude. And, you know, and again, I've talked to people where that's a hard pill to swallow because, I've got cancer, my husband's gone. I mean, there's all, yeah, but it's not meant to say, well, just ignore all the bad stuff. It's just meant to like take stock of the things that you have and enjoy them, because that balances your brain chemistry. That's the thing that helps you combat those bad hormones that keep pumping, making you worry all the time.
Right.
Make that bad decisions, right?
Absolutely. One of another one I just wanted to read. It's not too long either, but so the backstory, the weirdo backstory. My cat, I had a Siamese cat that was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing cat. Like every day the cat would get up with me. I'd go make my cup of coffee. I'd pull up the computer, start working. The cat would then lay on the keyboard and, bite at my hands every time I tried to type, until I opened up his drawer, and then he would sit next to me and dump hair all over me until I went to a meeting and had cat hair all over me. It's amazing. Cat hair in my hair never comes out. So this is just, he was my cat. And one night I was working really late, and it was 4:00 in the morning, and I was working on a proposal. And I've been working on it all weekend long, and I finally got it done. And I was sending a little email over to Dawn to apologize that, it was like, there was some weirdo things with it. And I was just like, trying to finish it up so I could just go to bed and get 2 hours of sleep. And my cat walked over to me, and I heard him meow, and I looked back, and he looked at me and fell over and died.
Ooh.
Right there on the spot. And I was like, oh, okay. And in that moment, the stoic thing came to me. And this is what it is. Do not say of anything, I've lost it, but rather I have given it back. Has your wife died? You have given her back. Has your child died? You have given him back. When you lost your home, you have given it back. But you may retort, a bad person took it. It is not your concern by what means something returns to the source from which it came. For as long as the source entrusts something to your hands, treat it as something borrowed, like a traveler at an inn.
Yeah.
And so I realized it was time for me to give my cat back. And that took a lot of the sting right out of it. I took a deep breath, and I realized, okay, so that happens. And since then, I've lost dear friends. I've lost very important things within my life and situations, but I didn't lose them. I just had to give them back.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works sometimes. And we don't get to choose. But once you realize I never owned this, it was something that I was loaned to me, and now it's my time to give it back. It makes you appreciate it that much more while you have it, but also when it's gone, it helps you deal with that, because you never expected to keep it anyway. And when I look at my children, I look at my loved ones, and realize that one day either I'm gonna have to give them back, or they're gonna have to give me back. That's a reality.
Yeah.
And it's sobering, but also now it's expected, and it doesn't have that same weight that it used to have for me.
Yeah. It actually, in a way, and again, revisiting the whole definition of stoicism, it's not lack of emotion. It's certainly not lack of passion. No one, I mean, these were all men that wrote these things. But these were men of great passion, very successful, very powerful men. And it just reminded me that, the hardest thing about grief a lot of times is when people try to get past it rather than go through it.
Yeah.
Right. You can't avoid it. Right.
Mm-mm.
I'm going to read one more from Marcus. We're on a first name basis now, but I do want to tell you about another book that I think that a lot of our folks who are listening to this might be interested in. But this was the meditation for July 1st in this book. Whatever anyone does or says, for my part, I'm bound to do the good. In the same way, an emerald or gold or purple might always proclaim, whatever anyone does or says, I must be what I am and show my true colors. And the Stoics believe that every person, everything, everybody, every individual, every animal, everything has a purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And the secret of life is to know your why, as we've talked about before. I mean, when you know your why, you become more effective because you're walking in and with your purpose.
Everything comes together.
Yeah. So we only have about 5 minutes. I told you this goes fast.
It does. Especially when we're talking about things that you just gotta love.
Yeah.
And this is definitely something that it shaped my career. It shaped how I interact with the youth that I interact with, and as well as the adults. Even looking at it, when I look at people that are working through addictions, I see them in a different light. It's all these different things. It really helps, and especially the reading, and even having the resources available. It took me 2 years to find the Daily Stoic, and you found it in like 3 days. So I kind of want to fight you on that, but these resources are out there, and these great writers. And Marcus Aurelius, he was the leader of Rome, all of Rome. He had everything, and he owned everything. It was all his.
He was one of only 5 good emperors, right?
Right. Like that. They got into financial trouble, and he said, okay, first sell all this. And he got rid of all his own possessions because he was like, as a leader, who am I to ask my people to go without before I go without?
Yeah.
That was just the type of leader he was. I mean, he was just, and he didn't even want people to read the meditations. That wasn't for people to read. Those were his own personal thoughts. That is his way of reminding him that the people that he served were good people. Even when they did dumb stuff, they were still good people, and they deserved his respect, and they deserved his best. And even when they gave him their worst, he still could not let that change the fact that he had to be the best leader for them, because that's how you show love. And so, and this is, I think it would be amazing if we had one leader in modern history that exemplified those values the way he did, in a time where he had access to every imaginable vice, mm-hmm. and still chose to do the right thing as often as possible. It brings a lot of joy to my heart now that I've found it. And next up on the list is Seneca, which I'm a little afraid of, because Seneca actually is when you hear someone being called a cynic, that kind of has that. There's some back. I do believe I get confused sometimes, but there's some stuff there. So yeah. There's a lot of great. I mean, all the way up to, I think our world would be a lot better with some of the philosophy stuff if we used more of it.
I just sharing one of our viewers' comments here with our audience. What I'm learning here has the potential to change my future thinking and explain some of my current thoughts. Thank you very much, Sean Mack. Please list the books you're referencing. Well, Meditations is one. That's all you have to remember.
Yep.
And look that up. The other book that I wanted to mention, and we don't have a lot of time left, but I will probably read something out of it, because you all can just quit if you want to quit. But it's Braiding Sweetgrass. And have you heard of that book, Sean?
I did not until you sent over a word, and I was like, oh, Mac, trying to make me think, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I'll just read a couple and I started devouring the thing. And so I had never planned to actually purchase the book or, swing down the library and grab it. But now I don't have a choice, and I don't really like you, because it's not what I thought it would be. in the very beginning, there's a story of a pecan grove.
Yeah.
And as he's explaining all of this, it's just the thoughts that are the way it's expanding my thought process around pecans, but also around people and how we treat each other. And one of the things that I instantly underlined was we don't bear fruit until we're ready. And that was just it's those little lines that catch you and you go, oh, that's it. That is going on my favorites list.
Well, good. I've devoured a lot of it over a few days, and Robin Wall Kimmerer, lost the name there for a second. She's a member of the Citizens Potawatomi Nation, and it really is steeped in Native wisdom and the relationship with people and the land, and values of reciprocity, how we owe each other and love each other, and it's really powerful, and it's getting. I mean, it was a surprise bestseller. I think it was published a couple of years ago, but it's actually enjoyed a real resurgence in this pandemic time, because people find a lot of it that really makes sense when we think about our culture. I mean, this virus is a product of the natural world, one. Number two, it's a product of how we interact with the natural world, it originated with, I believe, a bat, I think. And our culture of taking and exploiting, as opposed to living in, some kind of harmony with the world. And she describes, in one part of the book, she describes trying to reclaim a pond, and even talks about some of the creatures that the tadpoles and frogs she killed in the process of trying to make this pond. So it's not like this Pollyannish kind of thing, but there is mindfulness, and there is this idea of interdependence that I think is really powerful. And so I'm just going to read. I have time for one excerpt. I brought 6 pages, Sean, but you talk too damn much.
You knew that. We storytell together. Like, you didn't know I run my mouth. Like, that's it. The one line, another one that got me is remembering to remember. And that speaks to why that's grabbing you, because the first people, that's the whole thing, is remember the stories. The stories are passing forward for our ancestors. So I don't know why you didn't think that book was going to like grab you and own you until the end of time, because you've always loved storytelling. You got me into it.
Yeah, well, we got each other into it. So the reason I'm out here, and I apologize for the bad lighting. I'm sitting close to the sun here. I wanted to move out next to my garden. You got my corn there. I got my Swiss chard, my beans. And at one point the author, and this is organized in a series of essays, so you don't have to take it all in one shot. You can, much like these meditations, you can do one a day or one a week or whatever. So I'm going to read 2 things. I lied. People often ask me what one thing I would recommend to restore a relationship between land and people, and my answer is almost always plant a garden. It's good for the health of the earth, and it's good for the health of the people. A garden is a nursery for nurturing connection, the soil for cultivation of practical reverence, and its power goes far beyond the garden gate. Once you develop a relationship with a little patch of earth, it becomes a seed itself. Something essential happens in a vegetable garden. It's a place where if you can't say I love you out loud, you can say it in seeds, and the land will reciprocate with beans in that particular case. But, and so I get a lot out of gardening, and obviously it doesn't really feed me that much. It's a lot of work. I weeded it this past weekend while I listened to this book. And, just the idea of doing something in nature and doing it with enough care. I want the dang things to live, for God's sake. So no, but seriously, it's just a good exercise. And then I'll read one other thing, and it's really, and I think that one of the things that's valuable about this book is it really is a criticism of the world as we know it right now, and everything that's wrong with it. And when we think about, even in the context of this pandemic, how, in one of the wealthiest nations in the world, if not the wealthiest nations in the world, we have so many people who lack access to adequate health care, but they also lack access to a whole lot of things that has made them more vulnerable to this pandemic. And we see poor people, people of color, LGBTQ people, people who live with disabilities or with homelessness or addiction. We see their outcomes being far worse than people of wealth and means. And no one can really defend that, right? So just one paragraph here. In an essay describing hunter-gatherer peoples with few possessions as the original affluent society, anthropologist Marthel Salins reminds us that modern capitalist societies, however richly endowed, dedicate themselves to the proposition of scarcity. Inadequacy of economic means is the first principle of the world's wealthiest peoples. The shortage is due not to how much material wealth there actually is, but to the way in which is it exchanged or circulated. The market system artificially creates scarcity by blocking the flow between the source and the consumer. Grain may rot in the warehouse while hungry people starve because they cannot pay for it. The result is famine for some and disease of excess for others. The very earth that sustains us is being destroyed to fuel injustice. An economy that grants personhood to corporations but denies it to more than human beings. This is a Wendigo economy. And a Wendigo is an evil spirit with insatiable greed. I highly recommend the book, and I highly recommend more reading like this. And you can find all of this at Willard Library. We happen to have every one of these except the ones that I've checked out, and I'll check them back in. I promise. And if we have a demand for them, we'll order more. We're good about that.
I hope that some people find some peace and some understanding from some of the stuff that we've shared today, because I know it's the gift that keeps giving. I absolutely love it.
Me too. And I love you, man. Thanks.
Love you more, man. You know that. You know that. Oh, it's been a while, man. I've been harassing you for years.
I know. Well, we'll have to do some more of it. Right. Hey, Sean, appreciate you coming on, and have a good rest of your week.
You too.
We'll talk soon. Stay on after I end the broadcast. Okay.
Okay, I can do that.
All right. Bye-bye. And to the audience, I am taking a trip next week to my parents out in Pennsylvania. So I'll be off next week. So I'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care.